I'm Anne and welcome back to Elizabeth Ann Reads. So today I have kind of an interesting video for you. A while back I was challenged with the question, if you could only reread 20 books for the rest of your life, so basically you have to read the same 20 books for the rest of your life, you just read them over and over again, which 20 books would you choose? Now I love to reread. So the rereading part is not a problem. I would be pretty content rereading for the rest of my life. But only 20 books does create a problem. So when I was asked this question, it kind of stressed me out. I had to think about it a lot. But I did end up coming up with a list of 20, I did limit it to fiction, 20 fiction books. I tried to do a fiction and nonfiction combined and I just couldn't do it. So this is my 20 fiction books that if I was limited to only 20 books for the rest of my life, these are the books I would read over and over and over again. Now, I made this original list over a year ago. It's been a while. And when I pulled it out to look at it, I questioned some of the choices that are on there. I didn't change anything. I decided to stick with my original list. But there's a few books I've read even this year already that are vying for a position on that list. So I think what I'm going to do is keep that original list for now, but then maybe revisit this every year and update my list and see what's changed. I think that could be fun. But so this is the 20 books. If I could only read 20 books for the rest of my life, these are the 20 books that I would read over and over and over again. Now, my first thought was that I needed to go and get editions of Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia, like the single volume editions where all the books are in one big book. But because I don't currently have those, I felt like that was cheating, so I didn't do that. So that could change in the future, though. I may have to go out and get one of those, so I have one. As I've already mentioned, Lord of the Rings is on the list, so all 3 volumes, the Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King, all 3 of these are on my list of 20. I did not include The Hobbit. I do love The Hobbit, but I'm limited to only 20 books. I had to make some cuts. So the 3 volumes of Lord of the Rings are on the list. Some of the Chronicles of Narnia also made the list, not all 7. Again, if I had included 3 Lord of the Rings and then all 7 Chronicles of Narnia, that's half the list right there. So I only included 4 of the Chronicles of Narnia. I included Prince Caspian, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, and my personal favorite, The Last Battle. So those are the 4 I would include. I also included another book by C.S. Lewis. This is Perelandra. For those of you that don't know, C.S. Lewis actually wrote a science fiction trilogy, and this is the middle book of the trilogy. It's my favorite. It leans much more towards fantasy than science fiction, and it's fantastic. If you have not read the C.S. Lewis Space Trilogy, I would highly recommend checking it out. Just don't go into it thinking that it's more Narnia, because it's not. It's very, very different. But I do recommend it. The first book is Out of the Silent Planet. Perelandra is the second book, and the third book is That Hideous Strength. I'm only including Perelandra because that's my favorite of the 3. Also on my list, I'm including some L.M. Montgomery. So I actually have the first 4 books in the Anne series. So it's Anne of Green Gables, Anne of Avonlea, Anne of the Island, and Anne of Windy Poplars. Now, Anne of the Island and Anne of Windy Poplars are actually my favorites in the series, but I didn't want to just pull 2 out of the middle, so I had to include the first 2 books as well. So those first 4 books in the Anne series. I also, again, have another book by L.M. Montgomery. I'm very loyal to authors, if you can't tell. But this is The Blue Castle, which is not very well known. I have heard it talked about on BookTube just recently. I grew up reading this book. I have read this book probably at least a dozen times. It's a standalone and it's just amazing. If I had to name my one favorite book, it would probably be The Blue Castle. I love this book. If you haven't read it, definitely pick it up. So we're at what? 12 books, 3 Lord of the Rings, 4 Chronicles of Narnia, plus Perelandra. I think I'm at 13. Blue Castle, and then the 4 Anne books. That's 13. I'm at 13 books already. So that leaves me with just 7 books. One of them is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I love this book. I loved it as a teenager. I love it as an adult. I know it has some problems. I know some of the characters aren't very nice. I love the story though, so I included Jane Eyre. If you've been around my videos much, you know that I love Jasper Fforde. He's my favorite current author. And so I included the first 3 books in his Thursday Next series. This is The Heir Affair, Lost in a Good Book, and The Well of Lost Plots. And these follow Thursday Next, who's a literary detective. So she has the ability, she can go in and out of books, she can talk with characters. They're a lot of fun. There's currently 7 books in this series, and I love them all, but again, I couldn't include them all, so I included just the first 3. And that brings us to the last 3. The last 3 books I have on my list are all by Connie Willis. She writes science fiction, but my favorite of her books deal with time travel. And there's 3 books that are connected. So the first one is To Say Nothing of the Dog. The dust jacket's missing, so it doesn't look very exciting. This is, but it's called To Say Nothing of the Dog. And then these 2 books kind of go together. There's Blackout and there's All Clear, and that's a duology. And these all deal with, they're set in the future when time travel is possible, but only used by historians to study history. So these all deal with time travel. And they're just really, really good. So I highly recommend picking them up. I highly recommend every book on this list. You should pick them all up. I wouldn't necessarily call these my 20 favorite books, although they're all books that I really, really love. But I think they're 20 that have the greatest reread value. They're books that I could read over and over again and not get tired of, or not get so familiar with the plot that it's not interesting to me anymore. Again, some of these are going to change, I think, in the near future. I'm going to have to rethink this list, I think. But we'll revisit that maybe a year from now and talk about that again. But for now, if I only could read 20 books for the rest of my life, these are the 20 books I would choose. So thank you for watching. I'm curious, if you had to stick with just a few books for the rest of your life, which books could you read over and over and over and over again and not get tired of? I would love to hear. So be sure and comment below, like this video, subscribe, and thank you again for watching.